My name's Sasha Pete, and I'm joined by a fantastic individual. This man was a pioneer in English football and came over here and played in the old NSL. None other than the great Tyrone James. Welcome, Tyrone, to this conversation.
Good morning, and thank you for the invite. I'm a bit nervous, but we'll see how the journey goes.
Oh, brilliant. So, Tyrone, tell us, how did you fall in love with our great game?
Well, my story is I didn't fall in love with it, and my dad did, because my dad was one of the first generation. He arrived in England with other black people from the Caribbean allowed to enter England in 1955. And then I was born in 56, and I was like the first generation of children born. And what it was that during my just playing through school, I played basketball, soccer, cricket. I just continued to enjoy the sport, enjoy the school. But my lifestyle was to go to school, come home, because of the environment in England, because you weren't black people weren't accepted to be there, and people and the country didn't want you to be there. So we was, just go to school, come home. And during the time of playing, enjoying my sport, it wasn't until about 10 years ago my dad explained things that occurred. So my path was to be a football player, which unbeknown to me. So what happened was I was playing as a kid, and I would get selected to go for trials, and I'd go for trials, but I was not allowed to play. I used to practice on my own, go to the park, because I was not allowed to train with white boys, being a black boy. So when I made the statement, they would tell me, this is when the game is, and so just turn up and play.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that for a number of years. And then I got to a point where I was about under 15, under 16, and I went to...
So just wait, so that seems foreign to me. So you were selected to play in the team, but you couldn't train with the team?
No.
As a 14, 15-year-old?
Going from under 12s, because the parents didn't want that.
Wow.
So I get a call, turn up to play the games. So that's how it was going. So that was it was part of life. I accepted that. And because of my background, I went to school, went home, but didn't have any friends.
Mm.
So in England, it was like, there's just maybe me, my mum and dad. There's no cousins, no relatives, because they're all over us in the Caribbean. And so it was just me and one or two black kids in the school. We just go to school, come home. So I was just playing football, enjoying it. And then I got selected to go and trial for schoolboys, under 13s and 14s, right? And for England schoolboys. And when I went there, maybe one or two black boys there. And you sort of was on your own. You just go to the pitch where they were doing the training, and you sort of be on your own, try and do your football, and then go and have lunch, and then sit on your own, and then go to bed, get up in the morning, do the same thing. So that's how it was. So anyhow, I went for the trials. I wasn't good enough to at the trials. Wasn't considered good enough to be selected. So I just went back to school, went and played for my district, which was Newham, and I was playing for a number of years. And then when I got to my dad told me about 10 years ago what I did. And when I finished under 16s, right, that was my last year with Newham, the district. But during that time, I went to school, but I played for West Ham United junior apprentices, right? Because I was considered good enough. Me and a friend of mine, Chester Brown, unfortunately died a couple of years ago, right? We was the only two black boys in the team, but we went to school, and then they said, look, turn up for a training one night, I think it was a Tuesday and Thursday, and then play for the youth team midweek, not weekends, just midweek. So we actually played. So anyhow, during that time, my dad said to me that we was watching a game on TV, watching the World Cup, watching Pelé play. And he said, yeah, watching him play, and he tried to score a goal from the halfway line. I said, oh yeah, Dad, that's good. And Dad said to me, yeah, but when you was 12, so, hey, you turned around and said to me that I'll do that for you, Dad. So he said to me, the next game, they take the ball to you and score for halfway line. I went, looked at my dad, I went, I did what? He goes, you score for halfway line. I went, oh. Then he said to me, and that's when a chief scout at West Ham was at the game called Wally St. Clair and John Greenwood, who was the coach of West Ham. They were both there. They saw you do it. And that's why they approached you. I went, oh. So yeah, that's when, so when I was on the 16s, finished with district football, a gentleman came up to me with my coach. My coach says, listen, I'd like you to introduce you to this gentleman, right? He's a scout for West Ham, chief scout, Wally St. Clair. So he shook my hand. And it wasn't until I got older that I could understand the racism or something that was going on. I didn't know. And he goes, I was not allowed to approach you. I said, oh. He said, but I would like you to train pre-season with West Ham. And I said, okay. So anyhow, getting back to my dad, he turned around and said to me, well, when they saw you, that's why they approached you. I said, okay. So when I finished school, right, before the season for my junior finished, my coach invited me to his house. So it was in walking distance. So at that time, you've got to be careful walking the streets in London because things may happen to you. So anyhow, in a blood boy. So anyhow, I get to his house and he brings me in and he goes, listen, I've got a file here on what your trials at schoolboys, and I never gave it to you because I didn't think it would be appropriate because I played each year. So it was under 12s or under 13s. So he showed it to me, and the report said that I was only going to be good enough to play for the school. So I wasn't good enough to play for England. So I said, okay. So now, a couple of weeks after, England schoolboys, they wanted a game against the best players they assumed in the district league. So I was picked to play against the schoolboys, for England, and they're going in the tournament overseas. So anyhow, I just turn up with my bag, my dad, taxi driver drops in, says, right, Tony, you're playing right back. I said, okay. So I'm playing right back against these elite players, the best in the whole of England. Anyhow, excuse me, I've gone off and played. And I've just come home, Mr. Happy, nice evening, Dad, yeah. Next thing, I got the report, I got headlines, and it says, Tyrone James has the last laugh. And it says, these are supposed to be the best players. How come Tyrone's not picked? Because the headlines was, I played that well, that I played above those who were selected. So I got the headlines. Because what happened, I didn't understand. My mum understood it, but I didn't understand. And what she did for me, she put together a scrapbook. She said, you'll need this down the track. I didn't understand it. So I'll explain to them why. So she gave me a scrapbook. So all the stuff I tell you, I have it on record. It's in print, headlines in a scrapbook, my memorabilia thing. So I said, okay. So I was moving on. I was now under 16s, right? And I was training with the West Ham's. So I'd get up in the morning, train 4 hours, just to try until I could make it as an apprentice, right? So when I went to the training, I turned up, and the apprentices train on one ground, the seniors train on one ground, which was Bobby Moore, Martin Peters, Jeffers, Frank Lampard. Those at that time when they played, and then the reserves. So I'm just going along, turn up training, doing what I've got to do, trying to think, I might make it as an apprentice, right? But anyhow, prior to that, the only reason I ended up moving forward is because my dad, because see, when under 16s, you go to a teacher and they say, look, this next year is going to be the final year. And they say, well, what do you think you're going to be, and what courses do you need to get an occupation, right? Anyhow, my background is that they didn't care what I did at school because they didn't think I would amount to much being a migrant, right? So anyhow, I've gone there, and the gentleman's opposite me. He said, what are you going to do when you leave school? I went, football player. And he said, look, Tyrone, he says, that's a bit unrealistic, all right? I said, come on, be serious. I went, well, that's what my dad said.
So what do you think, like, look back now, Obviously, the status quo is, this overt racism. Maybe there's this ceiling whereby people make statements that you can't make it, or you shouldn't aim that high. But you obviously did, right? So you obviously broke those ceilings.
Yeah,
How much better do you think? How much better do you?
Well, hang on. Yeah. Hang on, 1 minute. Right. I understand what you're saying, right? But when the teacher said to me, being really unrealistic, he says, you need to bring your dad in. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay. So I got home, I said, Dad, teacher said, you need to come in. So he said, okay. So I've gone in, but I've got no idea about being a football player. That's not even in my head. So he comes in, teacher looks at him and he goes, Mr. James, your son's being unrealistic, right? He said he's going to be a football player. And my dad looked at him and said, hey man, that's what he's going to do. He goes, okay, Mr. James. So dad goes, see your son. So I said, see him. So I'm going to go do basketball training. And of all the teachers I remember, it's just one man. I went to see him and he goes to me, PE teacher, he goes to me, what did you say you're going to be when you leave school? I said, a football player. He laughed when he had tiny eyes. 1 in 1,000 makes it. Get over it. Come on, let's do some training. That's when I decided to be a football player. That's what I said, okay. That's what's going to drive me. So I said, okay. So when I was training with West Ham, right, Clyde Best pulled me over. The black player playing for West Ham. He pulled me over and he said, hey man, it's really don't like the cold. Get me back to the West Indies in a nice sunshine. Cold man, too hot, too cold. So he said, come on, sit under the tree. So I sat in the tree with him. And he turned around and said to me, they don't like you here. They won't like you. And I went, okay. And I thought he meant the club, but he meant the environment. Right. So I said, okay. So I was training and I didn't get the opportunity to be with West Ham because they had too many players. Right. They had one apprentice and me. Right. So I said, okay. So I didn't know this, right? But my dad told me about 10 years ago. He said, so anyhow, I got a phone call. My dad got a phone call because he wrote towards different clubs in the UK, and he got a phone call from a coach from a London club, right? Well, I'm not going to name, right? And it's a high-profile London club, right? And he turned around and said to me, well, we've got to go to this club. I said, well, I've got to go such and such place there. He goes, all right. So he says, I'll tell them. So they made an arrangement for me to go to this club. I've gone to this club, and my dad and I have gone there, right? And he's gone to me, gone there, and the security guys come in front of me, my dad, and he goes, can I help you? And he said, my son's come here to have a game, to train here. And the security guy goes, nobody from this club wouldn't invite you to come training. Mm-hmm. At this time, the coach went by behind and he looked at me, Mr. James, yeah, that's time, isn't it? Yeah, he says, come on. So the security guy looked around and he goes, are they with you, sir? And he goes, okay, he's in here to come do some training. Let him in. He goes, looked at my dad and said, apologise, sir. My dad just shook his shoulders and off I went and trained. But the thing was, all this made my dad was, my dad always used to never think about me playing football. So one night, after I played for West Ham youth team and won the FA Youth Cup, right? He doesn't know anything about this because someone would just take me and bring me home. I walked in and I've gone past the bedroom and he's gone, hey, man, where you been? I said, went and played a football game, Dad. Oh, yeah. And what happened? I said, so I pulled out the trophy that they gave me for being a player for the West Ham youth team. And he said, wow, son. And that's when he said, oh, maybe this one can do it. And that's how I did it. But I also, when I went to this club, this particular club, I was going to play a game, and I played the game. The coach said I played really well, and then I had to play a second game, and got into the change room. And because it was going to be a high-profile manager was going to come and look at this protege, this player, he said to me before the game, "I don't think you played well." Though he said to me in the training after the game and in the training season, look forward to seeing you play next week, because he didn't want me to shine. So anyhow, I got the opportunity to go to Fulham, because there was another club that my dad wrote, and I went and trained on the Tuesday, and I said, you never know who's watching you. I said to him, and you get a one-win opportunity. That's when you got to show it. So I played the game on the Tuesday. On the Thursday, they said, listen, we need you to play an evening game at Charlton, because the players at that time, this is their last year of playing, and if they don't make it, then no longer they have to go into the amateur league, because you've done your apprenticeship. It's like a 2-year. In the UK, they call it a scholarship. So they sign you for 2 years. The second year, it's like a scholarship preference, and the third year is they're going to understand you, give you a professional contract, or they say, look, you're not at that level. So I trained the Tuesday, turned up Thursday for the match day, right? And we're playing Charlton, so I've gone out and played the best I think I can. So on the Friday, they said to me, look, we need you to come into the ground on Monday. And I thought, I failed. It's because I had one game. So I went there on the Monday, and they said, we'd like you to stay with our club. It took me an hour and a half to become a professional, to come to that level. I said to people, I was there, I was just training, but I was never going to be, I wasn't an apprentice, I was just too old, but they said to me, look, stay for a season, we want you to be part of this club. So I just trained. Other players got the opportunity to be a professional player before me. I was like second from last, but I used to go away and train around. And what was like a turning point is that I was playing, and we played the youth team. We're playing against Chelsea, in the kickoff at Fulham, right? And in my time, black players were supposed to be light. You can get stuck into them, and they've got no backbone, right? So that's when, here we go, we can deal with this. So, but my turning point was that I played, and I was on halfway line, and the guy just hit elbow over the face. And I said, well, okay. The coach said, do you want to come off? I went, no, I'm going to finish it out. And then they thought, okay, this boy has a backbone. And then they started professional.
So, I mean, like you're talking about now, you're building a backbone. You've got fight, because when I remembered by the time you came to Australia, we'll move on to that later down the track. I remember you being such a hard man. I mean, you came here as a man. You're no longer a boy. So these are the moments whereby, these was that hitting the elbow off the ball or on the ball when the guy elbowed you on the halfway line? Off the ball. Yeah, off dirty. So obviously you weren't expecting it. You were just standing, you're watching the ball down the field, and he's elbowed you, right? And my question earlier, how much better do you think now, looking back, in England at that time, were you better than your white counterparts? Would have you had to be 30% better than some of the other boys? When I played, right, we're talking, I'm not going off track the question you asked me, right? But this is what my journey has been, right? When I was playing, right, in December, there was only 16 and 17 black players in England playing. And you're going to go to me, and people's going to turn around and say, oh, yeah, right. I know, right, because I was part of the generation, right? They talk about the players like Fernando, Fernando Baxton, and all those sort of players, right? When I played, I got invited by the Sun newspaper in December 1977, and they said, we'd like you to come and do a photo shoot for our paper. And I said, okay. I thought, because
let's go back. Right, we're going to go back to when because I played professionally, but you wouldn't understand that what my debut.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you have to go back, right? Because what happened with my debut, like when you talk about that moment about how the percentages, right, is that when I was playing and training, right? Um, let's go back further when I was 16, 17, right? When I was training at West Ham as a junior, West Ham players, senior players, like whatever, they all trained away. I never trained with them.
Okay.
Right, I was just training with the schoolboys, 17, 18-year-olds, right? So I'm training for them. Down the track, many years down the track, right? Bobby Moore, right, got transferred to Fulham.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Now, I've come back to UK from being on holiday after making my debut and playing in England. But when I come into the changing rooms, Bobby Moore was sitting opposite me with all the other players in the changing rooms, right? I walked in and he looked straight at me and he's gone, Tyrone, yes, is this a good club? I went, yes, Bobby. Okay, thank you. He recognized, just by training with the juniors, I never spoke to him. So he's obviously gone, who's this boy?
Okay.
Right?
So it was obvious to Bobby Moore, an icon of our game, right? So you'd be in the top footballers of all time. He noticed how good you were. So when he saw you again, he remembered you enough to stand out. So okay, that makes my point. You must have been at least.
But we never had a conversation.
Okay.
So he must have gone, well, who's this? Oh, this is Tyrone James. He's a schoolboy training with our apprentices. I never ever sat with him. Never ever spoke with him. Okay. But he asked who he wanted to find my name. And on my debut, right, this is what people would say in England is folklore, and it's never been done. So when I was training with the reserves, right, the seniors were training elsewhere. And in England, if the seniors played at home, the reserves played away. Like here, it's the reserves and the seniors playing in NSL time. They all played at the same time on the same ground for the whole day.
Yep.
In England, it's alternate days. So
okay.
So
it was harder for people. It was harder for people to see you play because everyone's following the first team and the second side.
But this is the point. This is the point to answer your question. When I was training with the reserves, right, and playing with reserves, we play alternate games, but I never trained with a senior team. Never. Done and dusted. So anyhow, one Friday afternoon, Alan Mullery comes up to me and he goes to me, the governor wants to talk to you. I went, okay. So he took me to see Alex Stock. I walked in. Alex Stock said to me, hi, John. I said, hello. He said, you're going to get a lot of phone calls today. I said, oh, why's that? He goes, you're playing tomorrow. I went, okay. So I get home. My dad goes, because my dad watches the games. And he goes, hey, man, what are you playing? I says, oh, I'm playing first team. He goes, yeah, man, and walks away. So the phone goes. He goes, okay. Another phone call. Okay. So he comes to me and he goes to me, hey, man, you play tomorrow. I said, I told you, first team. At Luton. He goes, oh, I can't make it. He says, but okay, son. So I said, all right. So what they don't understand is, so then I went to Luton to play. But what people understand is I never trained the first team. I went straight from the reserves into the senior team and finished playing the senior team. Do you understand? That people say, hang on a minute. Hang on. So my friend Barry James, he said to me, that's never done. He says, that's just not heard of. He says, that's one off. So I never trained with the first team, but I went straight from the first team. And what happened was, at Fulham, there was John Cutbush, John Fraser. They were recognised fullbacks. They were very strong also. And there was Alan Slough. John Cutbush and John Fraser, they were both injured, right? The coach Alex Stock could have put Alan Slough, because Alan Slough was like a utility player. He could have put him as a fullback. but Alan Murray said, play Tyne. Only because of the way I trained. Because they've never seen me play. Because they're always away from the ground match days. So never ever watched me play. Alan Murray recommended me, and I put me in the first team.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. So talk to me about debuting. What was it like getting on the pitch? What was the feeling like?
Well, I get to the ground. We get to the ground, and it was Eric and Morgan Wise. They were a double acting comedian group, and Eric Morgan was like on one of the directors of the club, right? So when I get to the ground, I'm sort of void of what's going on around me because I'm going to play this game, and they talk about like the tunnel thing. So when you're out there on the ground, everybody's doing their thing, right? But you just hear everybody talking. So to me, it was just like, okay, so I just sat down there, everybody's getting changed. I've sat down there, and Eric Wilkins come in, and he's saying hello, I'm shaking hands with everybody. And he'd come up to me and goes, I wish you all the best. And he goes, the brown envelope is at the reception, mate. See you later. So in other words, he thought it was his job to say that, if you let a couple of goals in, we're going to, But when I played, the players around me, they just helped me. I just, they encouraged me, whatever, and I just do what I had to do, just put the effort in. And everybody liked the way I played, and the club liked the way I played, and that's what I did,
Mm-hmm. So yeah, phenomenal story. How you just sort of it's almost like you sucked like a vacuum because they know you're good enough. You're there training with the reserve team, but someone's saying, okay, yeah, definitely he's good enough to step up and replace, obviously at that level. So based on that, all things being equal, you would have probably made it years earlier. So I mean, that's obvious to me, right? That you could have, for you to make that such an easy transition to the game. So what was the camaraderie like? You were talking about in the first division there, 16 or 17 black players playing in that era. Would you?
I'll explain. I'll just say one thing, right? I'm sorry to interrupt, right? I do apologize. People always say, well, he's saying numbers, right? But is he telling the truth, or is it a lot of rubbish? I've got a photograph. I sent it to you, right, of these black players, right? There was an entrepreneur, right? Well, when we went and did the photo shoot, I got the scrapbook. It has the 17 players, and they named the players, and they name where they are and what the deal is. But the heading is these black players the future of English football?
Mm-hmm.
That's what the heading was. 1977. And people may say around it or read this, see this and go, oh, he's doing it. Oh, yeah, really? I got the scrapbook. The heading is 1977. Is this the future of? Are these black players the future of our soccer, British soccer?
Mm-hmm.
So it was already now 10, 15, 20 years ago. Hang on a minute, but that moment, that piece there, right, of time, has never been accepted. And I'll explain to you one thing. We got offered the opportunity to go and train and play in the West Indies, right? So we went. We played Trinidad and Tobago, and we played Barbados.
Mm-hmm.
So we all played, right? So that was the time, right? We all came back to the clubs, right? During my time at Fulham, right? Trinidad, the national, because it's a small island, everyone in Trinidad knew my dad. So when I went with the hey, it's Tyrone, it's Peter James' son. Oh, take me here, take me there. My grandmother was living there. So my grandmother lived from 5 minutes from the hotel. Guess where I was every day? Down the street. Where's Tyrone? His grandma. And Nelson Street. But when I came back, Trinidad and Tobago asked Fulham, could Tyrone play for the national team? right? I got the heading, right? I got the paper scrapbook, right? So I'm not talking whatever. Now, but Fulham said, right, that I'm required to be back in a certain frame for pre-season. At that time, clubs said when you couldn't, whatever, right? So Trinidad and the club couldn't. I had me insured and everything, but they just couldn't get it to work together for me to be able to do it, because at that time football and nationals wasn't just a big thing, for the Caribbean. So I wasn't able to. So I would have been an international player in 1977 if Fulham said yes, and it tied in with the cycle of my pre-season. So but now, when I came to Australia, right? When I came to Australia, a number of people, found out that I actually played professionally. But was I talking fibs, right? Because a lot of players come from different backgrounds, whatever. But so I thought, well, I have to go sort this out, right? And what I did, I got in touch with BBC TV, and through email, right? And they said, sorry, but we never had any live coverage at that time anywhere. And I went to myself, well, I watched that game the next day. So how come that you were telling me this in social media? So down the track, I thought, okay, I'm going to call them. So I rang them up, and they said, I'm sorry, but those items in the archives of soccer games, whatever, there was a fire there. So they were destroyed. I went, okay. So at my time here, when I came to Australia, there was no apps, like social media and all that sort of stuff, Instagram, whatever, right? So anyhow, one day I sat down, had a glass of wine, went, okay. So I Googled out, and I said, anybody out there have a clip of me playing? So I looked in numerous avenues, like got games with, like professional games with different clubs playing. And a gentleman got back to me, and he said to me, I can get you a copy of your debut. Okay. And I went, you left me. I went, yeah, all right. So anyhow, he sent me it. He sent me a copy with the clipboard start to the end of the game. And I always tell people, watch to the end of the game. Even if you fast forward it, watch the end of the game. And the end of the game is a comment made by my coach, Alex Stark, that the was not what the person talked to him wanted to. He wanted him to document how I played, but Alex Stock didn't give it to him. I'm not going to tell you what it said. You have to watch it. And at the end, I went, thank you. And I thanked the guy. So I thought, fine. But so here I am, right, having done that, right? And when I listened to a broadcast that was done about black players, whatever, I said, well, what happened to about us who were the first generation, not the second, third, and fourth? What they actually got over? Unfortunately, black players who've come to Melbourne to play black players. I've been coaching different clubs, and the coach sits around and says to them, "Hey, look, this gentleman here, he's from the UK. His name's Tyrone James." They look at the coach and say, "Well, we know all about him. He's one of the first players to give us opportunity to play in the UK." So it was never, like you say, percentage, right? It was allowing to be able to play.
Yeah, the simple fact of being able to,
I said, it's go on the ground, but that's the office. You deal with everything there. And I always tell people, this is what I did. So I was meant to be a professional player, right? And just rolled into it by other people allowing to play. But my dad was, so when I go back to Fulham and that, to my dad a couple of years ago, and he was able to explain what I did and stuff like that. So when you talk, it's not about percentage. It's about, hang on a minute, I did it but not being recognised that I did.
Mm.
And when I talk about Dwight York, whatever, I would have been a professional player. I would have been an international player long before him. I would have been actually the first, maybe possibly the first black international player in England. 90, if I had given the opportunity.
Yeah, it's
the thing is, right, and in your question, no interrupt, but your question you said about percentage, it's not like I had to be better than the next one. I had to be better than the person who was the next one, and the third person. So I had to be better than 3 players, and that's what happened to me. Unfortunately, John Fraser was able to play, John Cutledge was able to play, and the style they thought, well, okay, time's an actual right back. So 3 players were not there for me to be actually an international, to be a professional player. And I did it on the training ground because they don't watch me play.
Yeah. So you can't even show how much better that you are. Got it. Yeah, I understand. So the you played at clubs where like you said, did you have conversations? I mean, afterwards with the likes of Bobby Moore. I mean, you played at clubs when George Best was at a club. Did they ever say hello, or you have conversations, or you just stayed by yourself? What was it like speaking with the other players?
Those players, they set a standard to train and play, right? But you were a player. You was part of the team, so we trained together. We laughed, we joked around. You know, when I played with Bobby Moore, he would say, encourage me, pass on information. You know, we always sit down, talk, get changed. We all in the same change rooms. It was never, there was no ego. There was no ego at all. Like when I was growing up and I had an income coming in, Bob Moore approached me and said, look, you have an income coming in, do you need financial advice and stuff like that? He goes, this is the phone number of the person who deals with my stuff for me. So, he introduced me to somebody to help with my finance.
Okay, that's great. So he sort of took you under your wing. It took him, he tried to advise them how best to manage your money. That's brilliant. So you played a number of games for Fulham, and then you were transferred to Plymouth Argyle, where you spent a number of years there. So what was your time like playing for Plymouth Argyle?
Oh, it's great. The funny story is that I was we trained on a Friday, so you usually do about an hour and a half, right? And the assistant coach come up to me and he goes, "Let's try and there's opportunity to move to another club, Plymouth Argyle. They're trying to get through relegation, and we thought it was a good fit for you, both of you, to go, for you to go down and would you drive and everything helped them. Would you consider it?" And I said, "Yeah, okay." I didn't know how far Plymouth Argyle was. It's about 4.5 hours drive from right? So they said, "Look, the deadline's tonight, right? So early tomorrow morning. So you need to drive now from training and get there and try and negotiate what you feel is the right contract for you. And if not, come back Monday, right? So you have to go down, for the weekend." I went, "Okay." So anyhow, I'm driving. I'm going, hang on a minute, right? So I'll fill the car up, right? And I'm driving. And then I'm looking at the fuel tank and I'm going, hang on a minute. Where's the nearest fuel tank, fuel station? And I'm driving. It's 4.5 hours, right? And I'm going, I'm going to run out of fuel here. So anyhow, I'm driving. I saw, fuel station. I kid you not. I was driven into the fuel station, come to a dead stop, and the fuel went. The car stopped at the fuel tank. I went, wow, somebody up there loves me. Yeah. So I fueled up and went there. And I got there and someone was there to meet me, took me to accommodation, and went there the next day, we talked. And we worked really hard, and they changed the coach from Maltese, come into the club. And, they just took to me and I took to them because they liked my effort 100% and everything, And spent a number of years there. And when I go back to UK, I go down to the club and I'm on their social media website link. I'm just Tyrone who did the right thing with the club, helped him keep up promotion, and gave 110%.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's it's nice to be remembered. How did you make the decision? So how did the opportunity present itself to make the decision to migrate to Australia? So how did that come about?
Well, a number of players were going overseas. Luther Bissett went overseas, and other players went overseas. And I just thought, I'd like to play in another country. I just thought to see what it's like to play over the country. So I sent out a resume to different countries: Australia, France, Germany, Holland. Right. So my mates, right, they all know that I like to play overseas. And then what happened was, I got a phone call from Alfie Zara, who was at that time president of George Cross in Melbourne. So he rang me up and he said, "Look, I'd like to offer you an opportunity to play in Australia." And I thought it was one of my friends, because of the accent, winding me up. Went, "Yeah, all right, okay. If you really want to, give me a call this time tomorrow." All right, fine. So I was just waiting for That's done. No one's going to call me. Ding, ding, phone call. Hello. I said, "You really are calling from Australia, aren't you?" so I said, "Okay." So then we talked, and I said, "Well, the one thing I want is a return ticket. But whatever, I would like a return ticket." And he goes, "All right." So they sent me a flight. So I thought, okay. So another journey. I get on the plane, and I'm flying. I'm going, Australia's a long way. So, and when we're circling Tyrone to land, I've gone, if there's nobody here, I'll have to wait at the airport and get a plane home. So when I landed, there was when I opened, then the doors open, there's all these supporters.
Oh, wow, that's nice.
I'm thinking, wow, this is welcome here from George Cross. We've got to take you down to the club. I said, all right. They said, you're going to Brisbane tomorrow. I went, where? They said, you're going to Brisbane. So yeah, they take me to the club, and I meet the supporters there, and I'm staying with the family for a night. The next day, they take me to the airport and meet the players, and John Garner was the coach. They said, we're going to take you to Brisbane. I went, okay. So anyhow, we land, and we're at the hotel. So they said, look, okay. They said, John Garner's not here. He's going to come later. He's going to fly up another later. So I went on Friday. The game was on the Sunday. So we went up on Friday, on the Saturday. And he said, right, you're going to do some training. So I've gone out. We all gone training. We all train on the grounds, right? This park. And unbeknown to me, what used to happen is players will come over, and sometimes they were being brought over by the club, not necessarily by the coach. So if the player's not the standard, the coach was to say, look, I'm sorry, he can't stay. We need to bring someone in over or whatever. That's what I didn't know that. So anyway, I'm training, doing what I do. And out of the trees, from behind the trees, comes John Garner. And unbeknown to me, he's turned around and said to the committee people representing who have brought us over, he says, he can stay, he can play. So he's watched me train, and he decided that I can stay. He walked out of the trees and gone, he's not right standing, putting the next plane back. So anyhow, we got to Brisbane. So we got and played, and it's ever so hot. I couldn't believe how hot it was. So I'm not used to it, because in England, we had the rain, the snow, but not as much heat as it was in Brisbane. So we played. The next day, next weekend, we played Heidelberg. It's 35, 40-degree heat, isn't it? So anyhow, and it was a culture surprise for me, because as we're going past in the change rooms, they got the spit going. And I'm standing there, this Australian soccer, So anyway, we're sitting, so we're in the change rooms, and it's ever so hot. So I've come out, and I'm on the halfway line, and I said to one of the players on the opposing team, is it always as hot as this? Because sometimes it gets hot in my hair. I went, I couldn't believe it. So we got in the change rooms, and I was just drinking cordial. I was just so thirsty.
Yeah. And what did you think of the standard of NSL football at the time? So you've come over. What was what was your? I mean, you obviously brought over to do a job to shore up a George Cross back line. What was your observation of the standard?
They were good standard. It was a very good standard. What I liked about it is that players were technically and physically good. A lot of players from different countries, right? And the countries were the different clubs at that time, you know. But the standard was good, and just the way they brought the young players through. You know, you turn around 16 and 17 will be playing in the senior team because he had the talent and the stamina. You know, it doesn't matter what age you were. You know, players were given the opportunity to come through. It was good.
And what was the Maltese community like at Sunshine George Cross? How did they treat you?
Oh, they used to call me big man, right? Because I was taller than some of them, you know. But what I liked about it is that they had what I didn't know. They gave me 2 guys with reminders, right? So I don't know why, but if I was going to go out for a meal, or whatever, they say, oh, yeah, contact someone, so and they go with you for a meal, or after game, we say, look, let's go for a coffee, or they go with you. And I didn't get to understand it till we was walking the street one night, you know, to go get a coffee after training, right? And across the road, these guys go, hey, you walk. Now, walk in England is a whole new ball game, you know. So I turned, they went, no, it's us. I went, okay. But it's really good. But I didn't understand the rivalry between George Cross and Green Gully, right? So when we had our first derby, I couldn't believe it. I was on for Men and Boys. It was on for Men and Boys, and it was good. It was good.
So
even now,
and off the pitch, I take it. Yeah. So both on and off the pitch, the rivalry was strong between those 2 Maltese clubs.
Well, I only saw it like match days. You know, I didn't know the history with the 2. I do remember, you know, that the groups were together, and then they parted, and then you know, some group went one way, another group another way. But there's no animosity like away from the ground because I played for George Cross or whatever. But it was just nice for the camaraderie when they played, you know, and how passionate they were, you know. And like now I'm still like with George Cross, I'm still able to go to the club, and people remember me from my playing days. You know, I give the effort, I put the effort in, and they like that.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah, brilliant. You also, from memory, you also did a stint at Footscray JUST. So why the transfer across? What happened?
I got to give you credit. You got your background. You've done your background. No, what happened was I played for George Cross, and the opportunity. Shaky Sagalagas, who was the coach, obviously saw me play, and he asked me to. You know, they asked me would I like to play for them, right? And when the opportunity came out, Frank Arnold, who was the coach at the time, a national coach for St. George, he asked me if I wanted to play for his team, right? But I had a family here in Melbourne, so I decided to stay and play for Footscray Just, and at the time there was only Tony Tapo was playing for them. Filipino, Zorn, I think I can't remember his surname. He played as Zorn played. So
so there was the Kitovic in the goals. There was I think was Ken Murphy there at the same year. So
yes,
Ken Murphy was there. Ken Murphy, and you had I think Gary Van Edmond was at the back there with you, and it was
that's right. Yeah, Gary was there.
A bunch of very sort of very Socceroo rich, or people went on to play, had appearances, or had historically played for the Socceroos or thing. So what was and the what was Shecky like? Because his English was probably pretty poor, right? So was he communicating through the other boys who could speak his language? Yeah. Okay. So tell us about how does a coach who can't speak the language coach you?
Well, in our conversation, you always said that you said that I had a bit of a bite about my game, right? Yeah. When Shecky played, like Shecky used to like to get involved with the training sessions, right? Okay. And he sometimes was a bit, a bit grunty, get stuck into you, right? So okay. But you're a big player because of his age. You show respect, right? Because you're going to go and tackle and play. Okay, you want it, coach? You have it, because of his age, you don't want to take liberties, because that's respect. So now we train and playing. He went through me, right? Oh, wow. In a tackle, right? And I went, and I did that. I looked up and went, okay. So now we're playing, and I hit him in a tackle, right? I hit him in a tackle. He's on the ground. He's going, okay, big man. He's looking up at me, and he's going, okay, big man. Okay, big man. He sort of thought, because he's coming. So he's just on the ground. I've hit him in a tackle, and I'm standing above him. He looks up at me and went, okay, man, I understand. Okay.
I mean, that's the reason why he got you on the pitch, is to be able to stop those things. How good was he? Like, so he would have been, call it.
We had a transfer.
He'd be in his 50s when he was coaching. He'd be in his 50s, right, when he was coaching. Just obviously a legend of the game. When he played for Red Star, he probably was, one of the best Yugoslav national team players, and recognised as one of the best European players at that time. But as a 50-year-old, did he still have the touch, being able to move in with you boys?
Yeah, the thing is, a lot of us had most of the creative players, like Oscar and Ernie, right? He was passing on things that 2 or 3 moves that they should be doing. Okay. Because of the style of playing at the NSL was all grunt and run. He was trying to implement to those two, like, use your brain to play. He says, use this, not so much that. Yeah, that's what he was saying. Yeah. So he was, with the defenders, right? He sort of was working on the shape, but in the midfield players, like Zoran, Oscar, and that, he wanted them to be more creative. His management was always more. No, more. Okay. So he went into expressment. But the funny thing also was that the one thing is he liked a bet, right? He liked to bet on the horses, right? Yeah. So we played into the state one day. We played one week and we played into the state. So anyway, he says, right, okay, we've got to go now. So we've got to go to the game. So anyway, we get on the bus. He gets on the bus, right? And we're driving. And all of a sudden he goes to the driver, stop. He gets out the bus, makes a bet, comes back up to the bus, and he goes, we go now. We're off now. So it was just funny. We all got this game. We stop, and he just gets out, goes on TV, makes a bet, comes back on the bus, and goes, we go now.
So I've heard stories back in those I think it was in Skinner Reserve there at Schindler Reserve, sorry, yeah, they're at Footscray now. The ground's gone. It's shipyards. But they used to like to play cards in all hours of the morning, and then apparently Shecky was there playing cards all hour of the morning, and then next day coaching from the sideline. So he liked to play cards too.
Yeah, he was a nice person.
Oh, fantastic!
He's very passionate at the game.
So fantastic story. So you went on to coach and do individual coaching.
I'll tell you what happened there.
Talk to me some of the players. Say, if I could just brief. Talk to me about some of the players that have come through the years that you've worked with.
I'll tell you what happened. Right. I got my junior license. I decided to stop playing. I got my junior license. And I was coaching junior club at Melbourne Knights, the team at Melbourne Knights, right? And I fell into it, like I fell into the football. I fell into coaching because I was coaching there. And then one evening, a lady came up with a young boy, Chris Fatacci. Right? I always remember it because all the boys I coached were still my friends, right? And this lady came up with her son, who was 8 years old, and she goes, "Do you do individual coaching?" And I went, "I've never done that." She said, "Well, do you think you could teach my son some stuff? You know, give him a bit more confidence." And I went, "Okay, I'll try." So I was coaching this boy for a couple of weeks, and all one evening he come running up to me and he goes, "I would like to, I made the team." I thought, "Oh, great, he's made the team at the school, you know, because the schools had teams." And I said to his mum, "Oh, that's great, he's made the team." She went, "No," he said, "he's made the team, get selected in the playground, and he's so happy because he's not one of the last kids." I went, "Oh, thank you." So he got, but then he's trained me. Then he eventually got an opportunity to play and become a professional player in the team in Belgium. But now he's back here in Melbourne at an older age. So he was the first one, and then afterwards, other people came to me and asked me would I do it, and that's how it grew from word of mouth. I always say the office is the ground is your office. That's where you will and deal, because that's what I did to become a player.
Mm-hmm.
So, but what happened was I was coaching a team, and then all of a sudden, Sunshine Heights in the Western Suburbs, they asked me would I coach a team for them because they're building up the club. So I just had this idea, and I said, look to myself, the players I coach were at a certain age. So I said, what I'll do is we'll hold trials, and we'll put a team together from whoever doesn't want, who doesn't get a game, and we'll see how we go at the club. So didn't have enough players coming. So about 2 or 3 weeks ago, all these players turned up, and I, about 12, 13 players. I said to them, they said, "Look, we understand you put a team together." My son, so all these players have never been able to get a team. So about 2 or 3 weeks before the season started, I said, "Okay, I'll make a team for you guys." All right. So to me, there's all rejects, right? People didn't want them. So I said, "Okay, we do this." They said, "Well, because I have fun. Football it's not a professional career at the moment. So let's do this." But I said to them, "But if you decide to stay, when you get 15, 16, I'll take you on tour to UK." And they went, "Yeah, right." It's just because I'm not supposed to be anybody. Anybody can say this. So I said, "Okay." So anyhow, we played together the first year. So then all of a sudden, other kids came, and the other kids who were there, they go, "Well, the only trials." I went, "No trials." I said, "If you stay the journey, the only way I bring players in is if I ask you want to leave." So there was no trials. One went, two went, and they stayed to under 16s. When they get to under 15s, they looked at me and they went, "Yeah, all right. Yeah, what about this top?" He says, "Yeah, okay. Do you want to go?" I said, "Yeah, all right." So I said, "All right." So because of what I did, I got in touch with Charlton, Fulham, Man City, Blackburn, Wolves. They all came back. And all I asked, I sent a letter and I said, "Look, what I'd like to do is a possibility of me being able to bring a squad over and play games, not trials, not get selected, not get picked, or compete, to play games." And they all said, "We look forward to seeing you." So when I told the parents, I went, because all this stuff was on my website, and they went, "We're going." I said, "Yeah." But the thing is, right, when I got in touch with Fulham, this is the thing, right? Because my dad got to understand, because when he left, he thought, "You're done and dusted. You ain't nobody now," right? So when I got in touch with Fulham, I said I sent an email. I said, "Is it possible?" I rang them and they said, "Could it possibly of talking to somebody who deals with the junior setup there?" They went, "I'll say so. We get someone to do it for you. Get back to you by email." Weeks went by, rang again. So heard nothing from Fulham. All the other clubs did. So my wife said to me, "Email the owner. You want to own Harrods, right?" I said, "What?" He said, "No, email him. Tell him that you would like to bring a squad over and he's obviously play a game." So I emailed him, right? And all of a sudden, I got a message from the management of so-and-so, somebody at the club called Kamal, who I'm still a good friend with. "You need to contact him. He'll deal with the thing for you." And I went, "Okay." So I rang him up and he said, "My name's Kamal. Yes, Tyrone. Yeah. I've been instructed by the management, right, of so-and-so, to help you in any way I can. I went, okay. So I organised to play a game, and he organised them to have a tour. That's on my website. And then half-time watching, he said, we also got you seating to the midweek time. Your kids are going to come to the club midweek because they're playing it in this cup game, right? Like like they play overseas teams, you know, like the championship thing. And so I took them to Fulham. They went and sat down. And at half-time, they said, look, we'd like to welcome Tyrone James back to the club, and all player with his squad from Australia. And they shook hands, they clapped and everything. All players went,
that's nice.
Wow.
It's a nice reception.
So I took them all right? So, and they come back and they all went into the clubs. When I started, one of the players I had, and he's on one of my flyers, was Anthony Boo, who's back in Melbourne City, right? I met him when he was 8 years old, and he was a coach in reserve, Jack Edwards Reserve, which is here in Melbourne. And at the time in NSL, there was junior teams. They had an A team and a B team, right? And I said, so after a couple of weeks, he came to a training session, and I did a one-on-one. And I said to his dad, well, what's wrong with him? Because he's not training well. He said, well, this is the last training session tonight. And I said, oh, why is that? He said, because he can't make the A team. He's going to quit football. Now, you and I know, right, that when a child says they're not doing it anymore, parents don't force them. They go with the flow. They said, okay, that's fine, done, that's it. Because his brother was good academic, and Andrew was also good academic. So he said, well, he's just going to go back to school and concentrate more on that. I said, okay. So I looked at him and went, are you serious? Get over it. So then, so I thought, well, then when he came on tour with me, and my brother-in-law said, when he watched him play, he looked a good player when he was 15, 16. So then when he came back, then he moved on. At 8 years old, if I had said to him, okay, it's fine, that's well done, all the best, he would have quit. He was going to quit, sitting down, he said, I ain't doing it no more. I was okay, get over it, let's do some training.
Tell me, Tyrone, you're speaking to this, you know, young 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old boy or girl that want to make that transition. What advice do you give to that young footballer wanting to try and make it as a footballer? What do you say to them when they ask? What advice do you give to them?
Well, the standard here in the A-League is high now. It's got high. It's high. Compared to the players overseas, it's very hard because they're training 30, 40 hours a week compared to players here maybe 5, 6 hours. So you can't compete. What I say is you try and do your best here and make it through the system and try and make the under 23s or A-League team. Right, so to make the transition from the NPL when you're 18, 19, because here in Melbourne, right, it's your VCE level, right? So, yeah, so it's very hard, and I wouldn't tell players, you know, forget that, because at the end, I always said you need education at the end of the day, because you never know what happens. And look at the COVID; it hit for 2 years, and if you've got no education, right, what do you fall back on? You can't find an occupation, stuff like that, or injuries come up. So I said to him, listen, work hard, do your schoolwork, do football. When you're 18, 19, try and push into the and trial for the NPL under 23s, then get into A-League, senior team, and then see what door opens for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Fantastic insights and fantastic words of wisdom. Tyrone James, you've been a pioneer to black English footballers. If you look now at the national team, right? So now the team doesn't see colour. You grew up in an era where that wasn't the case, and you broke through. You made that first generation, albeit a very difficult transition. Now you've paved the way to the likes of many players that now find it a much easier road. So congratulations, and thank you for your contribution to both Australian and world football.
And I thank you for the opportunity to have this talk. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best.
Hey guys, we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to our wonderful guest. If you like this type of content and would like to see more, how about you hit the like and subscribe button? And have a fantastic day.